What's up, friends? Zach here from the Trading Network. I hope you guys are doing well. Hope you had a good weekend, and I hope that you are ready for another great week ahead in the markets. It is Sunday, and it is time for yet another weekly market profile forecast for both the ES and NQ futures markets. But what I want to say first and foremost before we dive into this analysis is that generally speaking, we've had a pretty tight range over the last week. So what I'm going to be looking at on ES and NQ is going to be very similar. You can see that our range here was about 550 points on NQ and about 135 points on ES. Let's see, what was it actually? 136.25, something like that. So basically what I'm looking at is the high and the low on both ES and NQ. Okay, and I'm just going to mark these off, and I'll come back to these weekly charts quickly. But you can see here, and even if I load more data, I'll do this real quick. I've got 5 days loaded right now. Let's just load 10 days. Hopefully it doesn't take too long. But you can see that generally speaking, I mean, we've really just been operating in this range the entire time, right? So what I want to see is a break above last week's high or a break below last week's low, and that is likely going to get us our larger move, our larger directional move, which we have not had in at least a week. We have not had any directional conviction for the last week, and we have been, in a larger time frame range. And even, I mean, I know it's been large, but there's not a ton of price movement in this area, generally speaking, from a weekly profile. I mean, look at the overlapping value from 1, 2, 3, 4 weeks in a row. And last week was the first week where we really truly moved our value area up, which is, it's a bullish sign when it comes down to it. If our value area is overlapping, this area right here, basically between like 12,535 and, I mean, it's not a small range, 11,840 if you want to add this weekly value area, but even like 12,050. We had overlapping value here for 3 weeks, and then the value area low extended to like 11.8 down here. But that is really, really tight price action and tells us that higher time frame players are viewing this area as fair price, and that didn't change for a month, okay? Now we have essentially, in my analysis, or in my opinion, I feel like we have accumulated here. And then our value area, after larger time frame players accumulated in this area for a month, are now moving value up. Value area is moving up, which means that larger time frame players are now viewing these higher prices as fair value, which is bullish. Generally speaking, if the value area continues to move up, that means that larger time frame players think that price is going to continue to move upwards if they are willing to buy at higher and higher prices. Now, this is the whole idea behind market profile and market auction theory, is understanding, where these larger players are viewing whatever instrument, we're using market profile for to analyze where price is at fair value, undervalued, and overvalued. And if you see the value area moving up, once again, that means that larger time frame players, the true players that have the power and the force to move the market, they are viewing price as, or value as, moving up, okay? So if you guys are using the profile, which I highly suggest you do, then pay attention to value moving. And here you can see that ES is a little different, but if we look at NQ, we have overlapping value here. We have overlapping value for these 3 sessions, right? And that just generally tells us that the market is balanced when value is overlapping. And now, once again, on the session profiles, you can see that the value areas are indeed moving up. So you can almost consider it, or you could consider it absolutely as a sort of support and resistance flip, where these session lows now are right around prior session highs, right? So price moves up, and price is now using prior session highs, which of course were prior resistance, as new support levels. And that is just a further confirmation, or a further increase, a swing in the probability meter, if you will, that this is bullish overall. And we'll get into the weekly candlestick charts as well, and perhaps the daily too, to show you guys some evidence of that on a more typical chart, right? But I want to point this out, and although, I'll talk about the major levels that I'll be looking at and things of that nature, I think it's important for me to take a step back with you guys and talk about these, larger ideas and just these concepts that are extremely valuable if you're trying to use market profile to your advantage. So with that said, on a session profile basis, I really want to see, of course, reaction to Friday's high, and we closed right around the highs up here. So if we can move and hold above Friday's high, I'm looking for a move up to 1331. And then, a move above 31 very likely gets us a test of Wednesday's high at 13,082 and higher subsequently. If we do not get acceptance above Friday's high and the Thursday into Friday overnight high at 12,920 there, then I will be looking for a move first and foremost back down into this 12,844 level. And if that breaks down into this value low, which lines up with the overnight low, Thursday into Friday overnight low, and then you can see Thursday and Friday's lows, Thursday's low at 733, Friday's low at 728, both of those lining up very, very closely together. So you guys know the deal. When we have multiple market profile levels stacked up very, very close to one another, that's an important level. Break below this, obviously we've got, some levels to kind of stair step down, but we've got this naked POC here, 12,642. So that is where I would be looking for price to move. A break below 720 likely gets us that, 80-ish point move down to tap this naked POC. So keep an eye on that when it comes to NQ, moving into the beginning of the week and starting into tomorrow's New York Open. And we're likely going to have some good trade opportunity, just some real world examples as I like to drop in here. Say that we, pop above 924, we come back down, we test that as support. We've got good candlestick structure, we've got good oscillator structure, et cetera, whatever tools you want to use. If you're using our strategies, those are two of the factors that we like to see. And, if you have all of your technical factors lining up at this area, perhaps you take a long trade up to 958. Perhaps you take a long trade up to 977 or, scalp around between those levels. So that is how you can use this information to create trade ideas for yourself. You can right now say, okay, tomorrow, if we move and hold above 12,920, I'm going to look for longs up to 936, 958, 977, 993. There you go, right? That's a trade plan, or how we create our market profile trade plans on a daily basis. And on the flip side, if we reject from 12,924, then I'm going to look for short opportunity down to 12,887, 12,854, 12,844, etc. Right? So just try to practice that. If you guys have access to the profile, try to create these plans yourself. Try to create these narratives so that you can have an idea of what you're going to do, and you don't just, even if you're marking up these levels, you can kind of go in blind without a plan if you're not creating one or having a narrative for yourself every day. So without going on too much of a tangent there, I hope that, that this sort of information is helpful, because I know that there's a lot of theoretical if this then that, and that's a lot of how I trade, but I think it's helpful to, give you guys specific examples of how I am using these levels. It's always, I'm looking at these levels, I'm waiting for reaction, and then I'm making my decision if the market shows me that I have a high probability setup in these areas. All right, so let's get back into some weekly profile stuff. This is, once again, I'm going to try to keep this short and sweet. I already went on a bit of a tangent there, but I think that is going to be valuable for those of you who watch this video. So with that said, basically just watching NQ's high from last week at 1382 and watching the low 12,529, and the reaction, to value area overall. You can see that last week's POC lines up very, very nicely with the prior week's high at 12,811. So a break below this area likely gets us a test down to the value area low from last week at 734. And, if this breaks, you guys can guess, boom, boom, boom. That's where I'm looking. And I will say that we do have a bit of a liquidity void here. So if we break back below 580-ish, it could be a pretty quick move down to 447. You can see here on the monthly volume composite profile here, this means that there's not a lot of business done here. There's not a lot of volume done there. When there's not a lot of liquidity there, that means that it is much easier for price to move through that area. Conversely, looking at a peak like this right here, that means that there's a lot of, liquidity there. There's been a lot of business done there. Same here with the POC at 12,315. So it's much more difficult for price to work through an area where there is thicker liquidity, right? It's like a brick wall, and this is like, stack of paper, basically. This is much harder to work through, and this, can get blown through with not much pressure. So obviously, we're quite a ways above that area, but I just want to point that out. And I think that this is important to pay attention to as well. I also think it's interesting that we have the POC from not last week, but the prior week of March 13th down here inside of this liquidity void, if you will. So you can see that from a monthly perspective, there wasn't a lot of business done here comparatively to these other peaks, right? But this week in particular, that's where that POC is. And from a weekly profile perspective, there is a naked point of control there. So downside pressure, move below 529 could open up a move to 237. That's what I'll say on a higher scale. And a move and hold above 811. If we can remain above here, very likely revisiting this prior high from last week at 1382 and higher. So let's move over to ES. Very similar situation here. You can see that this 4,000 area is going to be a very important one. That's Friday's high, Thursday's value area high at 4014, so very, very close there. And I'll be looking for acceptance above this area. So acceptance above here very likely gets us, a pretty quick move, about 4 or 5 points up to Thursday's value high. And, I'm more focused on the highs of the sessions, because if we can move and hold above Thursday's high at 40.3950, then very likely we move and tap Wednesday's high at 40.7375. Now, on the flip side, if we can't move and hold above 40.10, look for a move back down to 4,000 even, 39.96, which is Friday's value high. 39.73 or 75-ish is going to be an important area, because we have 2 point of controls lining up there. So that's a very important area. Totally possible for price to, move back down into Friday's range, probe that POC, test it, see if there's any buyers there. And, perhaps we test the liquidity here, tap this area, and move back up. And these are just, again, more examples of real world scenarios of how these levels get interactions, and how you can watch for them. You never want to have black and white, like just blanket thoughts or ideas on these levels. Like anytime, price comes to X, I do this. No, you just want to mark off the levels, and you want to watch and wait and see if you can get a lot of technical factors in your favor. As I say, oscillators, candlestick structure, major levels, divergence, things like that. If you have those factors in combination with market profile levels, it is truly a beautiful match. So keep an eye out for that. I know that I say it all the time, but for those of you guys new to the channel and new to market profile especially, I hope that, my repeated reminders of this stuff is helpful for you guys. So with that in mind, let's move on over to the ES weekly profile. You can see we're right around, obviously the market hasn't opened up yet. We got about an hour or so till market open, but we closed right around the POC, again, in a bit of a little liquidity void there. So very, very important to see whether we're going to be able to hold this 4,000 level and get further upside pressure into last week's value high and last week's high at 73, or if we reject and move back down towards this value area low. So you can see, once again, as I was mentioning, the value is moving up, and last week's value area low is the prior week's value area high, right? So if we continue that pattern and continue to get accepted at higher prices, that is going to be bullish, and that's likely going to increase the probability that we get a move up to this naked POC here on the weekly chart, which is the point of control from the week of February 13th at 41.70 1/4. So that is an extremely important scenario to keep in mind. If we break back below here, and let's say, our value area is right here. Last week's value is right here. Let's say our value moves back down. I mean, that's a change in behavior, right? Because last week's value moved up. Our value area high and low basically flipped. That is a perfect example of a support resistance flip on a weekly market profile chart. It is perfect. It's almost to the tick. It's within 2 points, which is just beautiful and further supports that. So we want to see, for more bullish price action or for continued change in behavior to the upside, we want to see value continue to move up. So we want to have most of our business done, above 40.37 basically. And the value area, for those of you guys not familiar, once again, is where 70% of the entire transactions or volume took place in this session. So between 40.37 and 39.67 is where 70% of all volume was done last week. Between 39.65 and 38.85 was where 70% of all volume was done the prior week. Between 3900 and 40.60 was where 75% of all volume was done the prior week, the week of March 6th, right? So that is why the value area is so important, is because that is where the business is going down, my friends. That's where we want to pay attention. We want to see value moving up. You can see value moves down here, right? Value moving down, that's bearish. Value moving up, that's bullish. Overlapping value, as I was discussing, is neutral. That's balanced price action. The market can be out of balance to the upside, it can be out of balance to the downside, and it can be neutral or balanced, and that is what we see here. So it's going to be a very interesting week. I think that we are going to have a ton of opportunity, and we will see if we can indeed get some value continuing to move up. So with that said, let's hop on over to the candlestick charts real quick. We'll check out the daily, we'll check out the weekly, and we'll wrap things up. Alrighty, so now we are on the NQ weekly chart, and I must say, other than the oscillators, price structure is looking pretty darn good. For those of you guys who watched the video last week, I was looking for the confirmation of a local low with this weekly bar closing above the top of the prior weekly bar, and you can see that is exactly what we got. So if I zoom in here, you can see that we got, this is where this bar closed, 12,890, and the prior high of the bar was 12,811. So we got the further confirmation. We got another higher low on the weekly, which is bullish, right? So that is a good sign for some further upside. And really, I'll be looking for a move probably up into this 13.6K level where, you know, we have this prior swing. So you can see price based off of this area back in May of 2021, retested it in March of 2022. We broke it in April of 22, rejected, you know, retested it here and rejected in August of 2022. And I think that that is our next area of major liquidity. So that is where I will be looking on a higher time frame. Yes, it is quite a ways away from where we are now, but NQ is very, very powerful, and it is not out of the question. Whether it happens in a week, whether it happens in a month, who knows? But if we remain bullish, you know, this is where I'm going to be looking. So I'll show you guys the ES weekly chart as well. Pretty similar situation on ES. The candlestick structure wasn't as bullish, but we did not get, it was decent, but we did not get that local low, technically. So we needed a close above 4,009.25, and we got the close at 4,001.25. So we were really, really close. We were 8 points away. But technically, if we're being really picky, we didn't get the local low. So it will be interesting to see if we can get a close this week above 40.7375, which will, or which would, indeed confirm a local low. And again, further upside, which I would be looking for a move into 4180-ish. Further upside on ES, and if we push above 4180, probably like 4375. So that's on a higher time frame candlestick chart. That's what I'm looking at. You know, we are continuing to hold that change in behavior. I will say that this is pretty textbook. I mean, we have a nice probe to the downside that's been broken to the upside, come back down, retested, and confirmed with ever so slightly higher lows. And I think that, you know, that's a case where a lot of people can get trapped short and have a really bad time not realizing that behavior is changing. You can see that NQ has a very, very similar structure there. Beautiful, beautiful trend line that was established over the last year. Once again, broken to the upside, putting in higher lows and higher highs as well. So behavior has changed. We've put in lower lows for the last year. Then we put in a higher low, higher high, higher low. Did we put in another higher high? That remains to be seen. But keep in mind that the weekly behavior has changed. So who knows? Perhaps we see a test of 13.7K coming up pretty soon. Now, of course, this is just mental masturbation, but this is my analysis, and this is my view on things. And for what it's worth, if this was a 377 tick chart, if the oscillators were a little better, I'd probably be in here. You know, this is a prime entry right here. We got the local low, oscillators currently crossing up. You know, stop below here, stop below here. That was a 377 tick chart. That's my setup right there. And this is what I've been talking about for months. Honestly, go back and watch these videos. You know, I've been waiting for this 3-step shift on the weekly chart, and we got it. We have it. Do we continue to play it out? That remains to be seen. So with that said, I want to thank you guys, as always, for taking the time to watch this content. If you do enjoy what you see, I would greatly appreciate it if you would like, subscribe, and click that bell notification to be notified every single time we post videos here on the channel. If you guys want to learn more about what we do at the Trading Network, check out our website, thetradingnetwork.io, where you can purchase access to our most popular product, the TTN Pro Trader Bundle, which includes a lifetime access to our private Discord, access to our proprietary indicator package, as well as access to our Fundamentals of Futures Trading course. And I want to let you guys know, as a reminder, that we have also now released free trials for our brand new Volatility Pack, which you can access on our website. There is a button at the top that says Volatility Pack. Simply click on that button. Click the button on that web page that says get the free 24-hour trial, and you guys will be able to check out our Volley Pack, test it out, back test, do whatever you want. And if you like it, you can buy it. So with that said, thank you guys one more time. I appreciate you greatly, and I will see you in the next video. Much love.